Hello everyone and welcome to another Millionaire lineup review. This week is a special week because we are done with week 4, which means we have 4 Millionaire Makers and 4 Sunday Millions worth of data to review. So instead of just reviewing the winners from the tonight for the end of week 4, I'm actually going to go back and review all 4 Millionaire Maker winners this year and all 4 Sunday Million winners this year, and see if we can find any patterns, see if we can find a way to freaking win this thing, because I still haven't been able to figure it out. So let's get started. I have all the Sunday Million winners up right here. Here's the week 1. We had a Matthew Stafford, actually naked lineup. It was kind of a weird week, if you remember correctly. A lot of things went very strangely, so just basically having a lineup that had a tight end that did anything was very, very helpful. Having the Jaguars D was helpful, and basically just not whiffing really helped this guy win the Sunday Million. Week 2, the Tom Brady, Chris Hogan, Rob Gronkowski double stack with Michael Crabtree, who was pretty contrarian, ended up doing quite well. And then week 3, also Tom Brady double stack again. One secret to winning Sunday Million: just play Tom Brady, apparently, with Steph Diggs, who went off with Case Keenum throwing to him. Pretty interesting week here as well. And then tonight, Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins. Actually was not even that, kind of a chalky stack this week, actually. Had a huge benefit of having Greg Zuerlein at kicker, and just was solid all the way around. Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley were 2 of the top performing running backs. Had a great lineup, and as I just said, did pretty well. So going back to the Millionaire Makers, let's just review again. Week 1, we had Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz stack was actually pretty chalky. And again, this was mostly about just not screwing up, basically, and getting Tariq Cohen at a very, very, very contrarian flex play that worked out quite nicely and really put this lineup over the top. Week 2, we have Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. This is not a double stack, and if you watched my videos before, you would have heard that I do think that a double stack, and by double stack I mean stacking a QB with 2 of his receivers, like a tight end and wide receiver or 2 wide receivers, is better on FanDuel, because on DraftKings there's a little more limitations on the points to go around, because it is PPR and you want 2 players to get 100 yards. You want your receivers to get a lot of catches. Whereas FanDuel, as long as your quarterback just throws a touchdown to each of the receivers, you're going to be in pretty good shape, because it's half PPR. There's no 100-yard bonus, so you're not really limiting your upside as much. So as I was saying, Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, some really great value plays at receiver. Running back in the flex. Week 3, we had Deshaun Kaiser naked, Diggs and Thielen, who did quite well. This time we have a receiver in the flex, and we do have some contrarian plays at running backs that pay off. This was a very contrarian lineup that ended up doing quite well. And then week 4 tonight, Cam Newton coming back with a great game against the Patriots. He stacked him with Devin Funchess. I probably would have went with Kelvin Benjamin, but good job with the Funchess there. 3 running backs, a running back in the flex. Tyler Kroft, pretty contrarian play at tight end. He was cheap and was starting tight end. Probably not a bad idea there. Tyrell Williams and AJ Green. Actually, it's funny. He actually does have sort of a double stack here, but he doesn't use Andy Dalton, which I think is actually a mistake. And as I say in these videos a lot, sometimes you can make a mistake and get lucky and win. So just because you win doesn't mean you had an optimal lineup. I don't think it's optimal to use AJ Green and Kroft here. If you're going to do this, I'd rather stack Dalton there instead, and you can pivot AJ Green to someone else. It worked out, so maybe I'm just wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this is probably a mistake there. So yes, those are all the lineups so far. And I looked over these before this video, and I have a few thoughts, a few patterns that I'm seeing. And tell me, please tweet me if you notice any patterns yourself, or post on the Daily Fantasy Winners forums. I'd really love to hear your input. But the first thing that I'm noticing is upside at quarterback, okay? So week 2, Tom Brady. Week 3, Deshaun Kaiser. Week 4, Cam Newton. Week 2, Tom Brady. Week 3, Tom Brady. Week 4, Deshaun Watson. What do these quarterbacks have in common? Well, Tom Brady is the highest priced quarterback every week. He's the best quarterback in the NFL right now, and the New England has an unbelievable passing attack. As for the other guys, Cam Newton, running quarterback. Deshaun Kaiser, running quarterback. Deshaun Watson, running quarterback. I think something here that a lot of people are overlooking at when they're making their stacks and picking their quarterbacks is having a quarterback that can run really does improve that quarterback's upside, because you can't really bank on, Tom Brady in week 2 passing for 400 yards, or I think in week 3 maybe it was 500 or something like that, or 5 pass TDs. You just can't. That's not going to happen that often unless you're Tom Brady, and even if you're Tom Brady, it's not going to happen that often. And so to get that extra upside that you want at the quarterback position, that's going to just give you the extra oomph that's going to help you win these tournaments, I think actually using running QBs might be a sort of underrated thing for these tournaments. And it's something I'm going to look for in the future. And if we actually, let's just look at the games next week on Vegas Insider. And we can just go over some running quarterbacks that might actually be some good plays next week. Let's see here. So we have Minnesota, that's Monday night. Kansas City, Houston, Sunday night. And we'll see if DraftKings puts that on the slate. Green Bay, Dallas. Dak Prescott can run. He can run for touchdowns. Definitely an interesting play. Maybe perks my ears up a little bit more than normal. Aaron Rodgers does run a bit as well. Russell Wilson probably won't be a popular play, but as we saw tonight, actually, he ran for a touchdown. He can really do big things with his legs. So I think their team is going to be that highly projected, but he could be an interesting play. Carson Wentz actually runs too, by the way. Not a bad idea. Marcus Mariota against Miami could be an interesting one as well if he does end up playing. Deshaun Kaiser versus the Jets is an interesting one. Tyrod Taylor versus the Bengals. These are all guys who are going to run a lot, and I just think this is a play that if you find that running quarterback who isn't going to be played that much, like someone like Watson or Kaiser, if their team ends up going off, Cleveland scoring 28 points, maybe will never happen again this season. Cam Newton scoring 33 points. Deshaun Watson's team scoring 57 points. Holy crap. They just have way more upside than other quarterbacks. They're going to score 5+ more points than other quarterbacks in that same situation. So I think that's something to look for moving forward. Aside from that, this week we actually saw the high-priced running backs really come in hard here and do quite well, which was sort of contrarian to the last week's where going cheap at running back really helped. I think going forward, spending up at running back is the way to go. But that being said, I do think it's optimal for FanDuel if we're just being ownership agnostic. But I do think moving forward, we're going to see a lot of people paying up at the running back position. I think their ownerships will be inflated. There still hasn't been a real high-priced wide receiver who's had one of those amazing games, and it will happen this season. I think something to consider moving forward, especially for the Sunday Million, and DraftKings as well, more optimal on DraftKings, is spending down at running back, like this guy did in week 3, spending up at receiver, and that's going to give you a contrarian lineup construction that actually will pay off big time in the future with guys like Antonio Brown or Julio Jones, AJ Green, people like that, when they have these really big games that they're really capable of having. And as for the rest, I think, well, let's just look here. So again, I don't think that just because these lineups won means they are optimal. But one thing to consider is how contrarian should my lineup be? Well, I think in week 4, this sort of was the perfect amount of contrarianism, because the first thing you should look at when you're being contrarian is how contrarian is my stack. And in this case, I think you could have safely assumed. And by the way, if you want to just know what ownership is going to be in the future, I would recommend subscribing to FantasyLabs, because they have ownership projections every week. They're quite accurate. And if you look at them, you'd see, okay, Cam Newton wasn't going to be high on. Devin Funchess certainly wasn't going to be high on. So if you make a lineup like this, you don't have to worry about being that contrarian for the rest. And he really wasn't, aside from Tyler Kroft, who was just sort of a punt and a punt value play. But he has Leonard Fournette, he has Le'Veon Bell, which was contrarian, but not like unbelievably contrarian. AJ Green isn't, Tyrell Williams. These guys, Bilal Powell, these guys aren't like ridiculous plays. So I think if you start out with a stack like this, you really don't have to go that contrarian moving forward. On the other hand, you do Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, it's going to be helpful to have a little bit of contrarian stuff here. So this guy goes with CJ Anderson, which is a cheaper running back, and it makes his lineup construction different. He goes with another cheap guy in Jermaine Kearse at 1% owned, and suddenly you do have a lineup that can win the Millionaire Maker and has just sort of a structure that's contrarian enough. You either want to play a lot of contrarian players or try to do a contrarian lineup structure, because that's going to make your lineup more unique. As for FanDuel, as I said before, I do think double stacking is pretty optimal, and it's paid off twice with Tom Brady, to say the least. If you do go with the running quarterback, it probably is fine to just do a single stack, although putting Will Fuller in this lineup actually probably would have paid off really, really big. And and maybe just a little tidbit for the Sunday Million kicker. If you really like a kicker, Matt Prater, really skilled kicker. Greg Zuerlein, really skilled kicker. Kairos Santos, really skilled kicker. Blair Walsh, okay, he's probably the least skilled out of all of these. And he was one of the worst performing ones, by the way. But one thing to consider is that a lot of kickers, people just go with the chalk. It's going to be the guys who are on the biggest favorites or whatever. And if you look at the guys who are really skilled, and that's going to be hard to find. I use PFF stuff to determine that. But I'm sure you can find kickoff ratings or kicking ratings somewhere. But if you do go with these kickers who are really, really skilled in a situation where people aren't going to use them as much, you can get these really big scores. I like to just pair them with the defense, but that actually hasn't worked so far this season. So maybe that's wrong. I do think it's a smart idea. But to keep in mind when picking kicker, I think taking guys like Zuerlein when they're underdogs, guys like Prater when they're underdogs, Justin Tucker is another one who's very skilled. This guy in Oakland, Giorgio Tavecchio, seems very skilled. You take those guys in underdog situations and you can get really, really big games. So any final thoughts? I'm just going to look through this really quick and see if I see anything. And I think I went over everything I wanted to go over. But yeah, I think moving forward, given how the trend with running back performance has been, where these running backs are having huge games, especially this week, Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott, Bilal Powell, all had just enormous games. And I think what's going to happen is people are going to start using running back more in the flex. They're going to pay up at running back on FanDuel. And I think there's going to be a week soon where a high-priced wide receiver is going to really go off, and the people who use those high-priced running backs who just stack Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley are not going to do as well in those weeks coming up. And the point is you do want to take some risks here, because these tournaments are very top-heavy. You don't want to just put in some chalky lineup and hope for the best and win $50. You want to win $500,000. You want to win $1 million. So definitely keep that in mind. And I do think for the flex position, I would say you want to be contrarian. Don't use a running back moving forward. I think that a lot of weeks it's probably optimal. There might be some weeks, this week being one of them possibly, where okay, let's not just go crazy on let's use the running back in the flex because it really is optimal. But there's a lot of weeks where it's just not, and the running backs are not as high projected as you think, and using a wide receiver there can give you a lot of upside. So I've learned a lot. I hope you've learned a lot. And as always, I hope you enjoy this video. Any feedback, questions, any observations, as I said, if you observed anything while looking through this, tweet me at MaxJ Steinberg. I'd love to hear it and see if we can figure out anything else so we can win these damn tournaments one of these days. So again, good luck. I hope all you guys did well this weekend. And if not, I hope you do well with your lineups next weekend. Thanks.